Welcome back to the Lessons from the Animal series. In this video, we're going to be recovering the snake. In the last video lesson we learned on the snake, we learned about flexible attack and how to use flexibility as a way of avoiding opponents' attacks while creating more advantageous situations for yourself. In this video, we're going to be covering what we call the constrictor method. So within our Ma family snake boxing, we have multiple different methods that we look at. There's like the spitting snake, like the venom type of snake. So that's like a lot for pressure points and grabbing and stuff like that. And there's the striking snake. So it's used for quick strikes. And then there's the constrictor method. The constrictor method is a lot about strangles, chokes, locks, things of that nature. Things of which you become like a constrictor, right? So my favorite chokehold, right, is this one. It's very famous in MMA. It's called a snake choke in our system. But the idea is you weave your snake around and then you squeeze off the space, right? So in this case, we're using the constrictor to choke them, to seal off their air. But there's many other instances that you could use this as well, not just to seal off the windpipe, so to speak. You could use it in the locks as well. The idea is that whenever you're put into a lock, the more space you have with freedom to move, the less effective the lock is, right? So if like someone's putting this kind of lock on me and they kind of have my arm down here, they're not really putting it up there, right? And I have all this wiggle room here. I have all this room to move, which means they haven't controlled me. If I have room to move, they cannot control me, because the idea of locks is not just to lock the area that you're holding, but to lock the entire body, ideally, right? So if I put a joint lock on someone, I might grab their wrist and elbow, but I want to lock up all the way to their spine, because if I can lock their spine from moving, their spine is where their whole trunk is located. And if I can control their spine from moving, I can control the rest of their body from doing anything helpful. Because right, if they have a flailing limb, if it's just their limb, it's not that dangerous. But if it's connected to the whole trunk, it's a lot more dangerous, because there's a lot more weight behind it. So the more I can lock and control of the opponent, the better it is for me. Thus, the more space that someone has to move when put into a lock means that there's less control on that opponent. So with the constrictor, well, actually first, before I go on to that, we could say with the flexible attack from the previous video, we could say that using the flexibility of our movement, not just stretching flexibility, but allowing ourselves to move freely like water, the more you're able to keep that flexibility into that motion, the less you're able to be locked, like as we said. But in this, now we're looking at the vice versa. With the constrictor, we're trying to look at creating as little space for our opponent to move as possible. So we have to get rid of all the gaps. So if I'm going to put a lock on someone, I need to make sure there's little to no space as possible. In the same way that in theory of throwing and a judo type like a throws, you want to get right up on the guy. You don't want any space between you. The more space I have away from them, the less leverage I have to throw them. But if I get right up on them, I have a lot more leverage to throw them from. It's the same idea here with the snake constrictor arts. I need to be right up on them, whether to throw them, whether to strike them, or to constrict and to immobilize them through joint locks or whatever. So I want to eat up all of that space, much like the constrictor. Because once the constrictor gets tight around its opponent, right, it's trying to squeeze further and further and further so that the animal cannot move. And even further every time it breathes. Because every time we breathe, for example, right, we breathe in and breathe out. As we breathe out, we get condensed more. So as the constrictor feels that condension, it will squeeze tighter. And now the animal will have less room to breathe. So it will inflate, it'll try to inflate, and then it'll deflate, and then as it deflates again, squeeze tighter. It'll try to inflate, deflate again, squeeze tighter, 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 until cannot breathe at all, and then animal dies and it gets eaten. So in that same way, we constrict, we eat up all that space, no matter what the position we're putting them in, whether we're throwing them to the ground, restraining them on the ground, or putting them into a joint lock, we try to eat up as much space as possible. If I want to put a joint lock on someone, for example, right, like if we talk about small wrap where we're trying to get this type of angle in their wrist and put them on the ground, like over top like that, if I do it out here, I have a lot less leverage and I have a lot less control over my opponent. But if I do it within close to my body, I have a lot more leverage because I'm closer to the center of mass. And if I get closer to them, right, I'm eating away that space. The joint lock out here isn't as effective as it is over here, where now it's really tight in and close to them. So the closer, the more space that you eat up, the better. So that's with the constrictor method. So now we've learned another lesson from the snake. See you in the next video.